Okay. Before we begin, we actually have Flat Earth Dave back with us again today, and I can say this is one of my most watched videos, other than the case I'm working on. Almost like 3,900 views, which I think was a pretty good success. And it must have resonated and made sense with a lot of other people because at least two other people that saw his video and knew me on another platform actually are now not only subscribed to Dave, but they're like, oh, he's making a lot of sense. So please keep watching because what he has to say, I'm telling you, will blow your mind. Now, again, before we begin, I have to say hello to a young man. He's one of my youngest viewers, not on the other stuff I do, but videos like this. He's 7 years old, and he saw the last video I did with Dave, and he was so excited because he's seen me before and he knows me, and he kept waiting for us to say hi to him, but he didn't understand that it was a pre-recording. So this time I'm going to say hi, Malachi. Thank you for watching, and go ahead and enjoy this. And I'm telling you,
Wow.
Dave, he loved everything you had to say, and he talked about it for days afterwards.
The
So
truth resonates with young children. The problem is that, by the time you get to 10 years old, you're so indoctrinated. There's so much programming that it's kind of hard to break because it becomes the foundation of your life. But once you drop your ego, and luckily, kids, their egos aren't as built up as us older adults. It's really easy to see. And here's the other thing: the flat Earth, we have so much to learn. There's so much to learn. There's so much we don't know. But what we all know clearly is that we don't live on a spinning ball flying through space. That's utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Is that correct? Utterly
yes.
ridiculous. And the teachers that teach it doesn't make them bad people. It makes them lazy people, right? Because they haven't looked. If someone says, hey, the Earth is a globe, I say, what's your number one proof? And all they can come up with is photos, Aristophanes, sunsets, all of the stuff that once you look into it, actually prove the Earth is flat.
And it's interesting you mentioned that because I had sent you a video, which I don't think you probably got. My email's so messed up, but it was a video on this gentleman. I don't know if I should say his name or not, but he was supposedly was trying to prove the globe by using his bicycle and two sticks. And he's quoting Eratosthenes, or however you say this gentleman's name.
Aristophanes.
And I remember you covering that, and I'm like, wait a second, you explained that so much better than my brain could comprehend. So I didn't even comment on his video, but could you show everybody again how that is just ridiculous? You can't use two sticks to prove a globe.
Right. Aristophanes, back in 2,000 years ago, whenever it was, he noticed that he could see the sunlight shining in the bottom of a well on a certain day of the year, and that proved that the sun is over his head, directly over his head. Easy, anybody can deduce that. And then the story is he sent his buddy 500 miles away to, at the same time, measure the angle of the sun. And the story changed from wells to sticks and wells. Doesn't matter. It's the same experiment. So if you put a stick up on that day where Aristophanes was in Said, there's no shadow at solar noon or whatever. Okay. And then at the same time, somehow he was communicating with his buddy. If you believe the narrative of our timeline, how the heck did he communicate with his buddy? How did he measure the 500 miles? There's a whole bunch of questions. And his buddy's stick had a shadow. Well, first you have to assume parallel rays coming from an infinitely distant sun, or a very distant sun. The farther away you pull that light, the light rays come in straight. But why would he assume that when nobody has ever seen parallel rays? Nobody ever sees parallel rays. So that's just a huge, that's pre-assuming a distant sun. Well, you can't presume a distant sun. And his experiment is right if we lived on a ball with a distant sun, but we don't have any proof of that. And there's actually proof that we don't live on a ball. But with a small local sun, here he is, no shadow. Here's his buddy, shadow, angles, shadow length. He could do the same math and figure out the sphericity of this flat plane, right? So when you have bad data and you use math you get bad answers. So, Aristophanes was touted as being the first mathematician, first guy ever to figure out the size of the spherical Earth, right? He would be the most famous mathematician ever. But through the years and centuries following him, other mathematicians that lived in the same area that wrote many books never once mentioned him. And the analogy that I use is that's like me writing a history of the Chicago Bulls and just leaving out Michael Jordan. Never going to mention him.
Right. And, I never even heard that name until like within the last year. I had no idea this person even existed.
Well,
It's
did he
ridiculous.
exist is the question. You look at all of these people that the stories, cool stories of leaders, scientists that prove the globe. We have no proof that these guys ever existed. I think all of our history is a lie, all of it. And when you start looking into Tataria and mud floods, your understanding of what this place was is completely wiped out. I mean, the question is, what happened? Where did this other civilization go? But it's not a theory that they existed, because there's structures all over the earth, everywhere, all across the earth. Ancient, advanced civilization was here not that long ago, 100, 200 years ago. Okay.
And, I remember you talking about that in our last video too. And I had never even heard of what's the
Tataria.
name? Tataria. I'd never even heard of that word before. And so I did a lot of research, and I came across someone had this video, and it was old. Yes, and it was an actual video. And it got to the point to where they were doing like a big, huge state fair. And this was before supposedly lights were, all of the wiring and stuff had been invented, and this entire city was lit up with lights with no wires. And then there was a moving sidewalk. If I hadn't seen it in the video myself, I would have said, okay, you guys have jumped off the deep end.
I believe that one there, if you look at the people carefully, there was some very, very tall people, maybe like 12 feet tall in that video. Okay. So that goes back to giants. But think about this. This thing was built back in a time where people are in horse and buggies with hemp ropes and stuff. How did they build this?
And I thought about that my whole life, because the architecture of old buildings has always fascinated me. And I'm always like going, well, why are we building stick cabins, but yet they have these massive cathedrals? Who built those cathedrals? Obviously not the same people.
Right. And then if you look into the mud floods, what's that? There was something that buried much of the earth. And we don't know if it happened all at once in regions. And we could argue about that all day, but there's no question that there's buildings that are buried. If you look at our Capitol building, there's old pictures showing that there's another building underneath it. Our Capitol building was here before Columbus got here, if that's even a true story. Okay. So our realm, the lie is 100 years old. It's somewhere around 100 years old, because, the World's Fairs, you go look at the World's Fairs from, California, from I think it was in San Francisco. The structures that they built there are unbelievable. And they built them in a year, which is impossible. And then they tore them down right after the fair. That was literally the end of the takeover. Then they introduced the world wars and everything. And these wars are just part of the reset. Get rid of all of the old knowledge and go from there.
Oh, it's just incredible. And I shared that video with some other friends of mine, and they haven't gotten back to me yet. But I'm like, when you see a moving sidewalk in the 1800s, and there's nothing there, and we know that they didn't have, whatever those things are called, and it's not an escalator, but you know what I mean? Those like we have at the airports these days. It's like, how did they get the sidewalks to move?
And there's so much more there. If you have my app yet?
Yes, I do.
So in your app, if you hit the web button and then the middle column on the right, there's mud floods in Tataria. You hit that button, and I add new videos to it all the time. Up come great channels. Now, this is just some of their work. Like these videos right here, those are by John Levy, 20-minute video every week. Awesome. Some people go, oh my God, his voice is going to make me go to sleep. It grows on you. It really grows on you. Like I listen to most of my videos at 2x, but I could listen to him at 4x and understand him. But I listen to him at regular speed because the images he's showing are so amazing, and you don't want to just skip through them.
And which one did you go to again? I'm
That is the web button, the one that looks
yeah,
like a
yeah.
the middle
Uh-huh.
second row, and then it says mud floods Tataria on the second row to the right. Okay, that could move. And this, by the way, these scroll down. I'm
Okay.
adding more and more stuff. But you hit mud floods, and what I say is, if you see a video that you really like, subscribe to that channel, and then start
Okay.
watching all of their videos. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
there you go. You
Okay.
got it. So
Yeah.
again,
So others can see.
yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
I don't know. It's so bright. Sorry, but yes.
Is my screen showing up clearly, or is there stuff behind it? Is
No.
my the image right here? Is this clear?
Yes. Very clear. Very
Okay,
clear.
good.
Mine was not.
I was having a problem yesterday. I think it has to do with StreamYard, but we're on Zoom. Um, and check that out. Especially, what was the boy's name? Michael or
Malachi.
Malachi? Malachi. Watch John Levy's videos, and you'll be the smartest kid in your school. You may be ridiculed a little bit until people catch on, but you'll be the smartest kid in your school.
Well, the good thing is he's homeschooled, so his
Oh,
mom really
perfect.
got into this, but he has no problem even going up to people on the street and he just starts conversations. I mean, this little 7-year-old boy just goes around going, you know, the earth is not round, it's flat.
Good for
It's so
him.
cute.
Good for him. Stand in your truth.
Hmm. And okay, and the next thing, the this was one of the things, and this could be something I'm completely misunderstanding, but we all know that there was a solar eclipse on December 4th. We know something happened. I don't quite understand, and I'll be honest, I have your app, but I have not gone and watched the eclipse videos yet. However, I'm looking at this and I was trying to watch, and I'm looking at all of these videos that supposedly NASA put out and all of these other professionals put out. And, you know, they're changing the filters. And when you're looking at the sun, it's just this massive bright light. You never see solar flares around. It's just a big circle of light. And as whatever is passing over, that's supposed to be the moon. I get these confused.
Like, here's the problem. When there's a solar eclipse, that's when the moon comes in front of the sun and blocks
Okay.
the sun. That's the official story. I'm calling nonsense
Right.
on that because, yes, the moon is near the sun when there's an eclipse. An eclipse only happens when there's a new moon. That means there's no light on the moon. Okay.
Right.
And so no light on the moon and it's near the sun. Okay, I can understand how it would be hard to see the moon because the sun's behind it and it's blinding your eyes. But during a total solar eclipse, when the moon is blocking out the entire sun, how come we can't see the moon? We don't.
Yeah.
We just see a black spot. And the earth shine should light up the moon brighter than the moonshine lights up the earth. Okay? So what is the eclipse? If you ask me, I think it's a I think that the sun and the moon that we're seeing are reflections of their actual source, which is behind them, which is higher in the sky. So I think that the new this now there's other there's other cosmology saying there's other dark bodies up there. I don't know the answer, but I can recreate it, showing you how the sun goes behind the moon would block the sun from being projected, and it creates an eclipse, and then you can never see the moon. Have you seen my video on that? Maybe it's worth showing. It takes like 2 minutes.
No, go ahead, please show. I have not watched it yet.
So in the app, again, let me go full screen here. If I hit the question mark and then I hit what about eclipses in the bottom right, and then I go down a little bit, where is it? There it is. So this video, and yeah. So there was an eclipse a couple years ago that somebody was filming. All right. So on the left here is my simulated eclipse, and on the right is an actual eclipse that I filmed. And the sky was a little hazy, so it was really easy to film. And again, what is eclipsing it? So somebody in Michigan a year or two ago filmed the eclipse, and there was this little moon. Now, there was this little moon right there, the one that says not lens flare. The other one is a lens flare. Now, that's locked to the sun. Why isn't it moving around? As the camera's moving around, if it's a lens flare, it should move. And we're like, what is that? And now the eclipse was about 85% at this point, but the reason you don't see it on the main sun there is just because it's so bright it's blowing out the lens. But it is 85% eclipsed. It is getting darker, right? You just
Okay.
can't see it on the big part. So my theory is that little one that little eclipse that's off to the bottom right is the actual source of the sun, right? What do I mean by that? That is the projector. You ever watch a movie being projected onto a sheet and the
Yes.
movie camera is behind it? You can see the movie on the sheet, but if you stare at the sheet carefully, you can see the source of that projection behind it as a
Right.
light. So imagine that being a source and it's being projected, what I call into the sky sheet, right? So
Okay.
um, here's me simulating an eclipse. Now we have the sun. There's the source of the sun then coming out of that tube, and I have a new moon, which is just a bottle cap, eclipsing it, and that looks exactly like what we see. Okay,
Yeah.
so you don't see the moon; you just see something eclipsing it, and that's because we're not. There's no light on the moon, so it's not being projected. If there's some light on the moon, we'd see the lit part of the moon projected. But then I said, okay, what is that little? How do they see that little thing? And I said, you know what? Maybe that paper towel I use is too opaque because the sky isn't maybe that opaque. So I use tissue paper, and watch what happens when I did it with a thinner medium. Here comes the eclipse from behind. And if you look off to the right there, that's the source that we're seeing
Oh,
right,
wow.
right there. That's the source that's being projected. And if you compare that to the actual eclipse, kind of looks exactly the same.
It really does.
Yeah.
Okay, see, that makes sense.
Now, is
Wow.
that the case? I don't know. It sure makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot more sense than this whole heliocentric, nonsensical model. Now, think about this. They tell us that the sun is 400 times bigger and 400 times farther than the sun. And that's why they look like they're the same size, okay? Because one's far away, right? The odds of that happening are, well, we'll just say 1 in 400. The odds of them lining up perfectly are a bazillion to one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's for it happening once. But guess what? There's eclipses
Yeah.
every year in different parts of the world. And after 18 years, guess what happens? They repeat. The whole
So it's
cycle repeats
cyclical.
again. It's cyclical.
Oh,
It's like a perfect clock in the sky.
wow. I did
Yeah.
not know that. That's wow.
Yeah,
And
they're on a there's two different solar cycles, and they eclipse right in the sky. I mean, they repeat every every uh every 18 years. So here's a quick little a further experiment I did. So this is called Where Do You See the Sun? I have a blue sheet hanging. I have a light 10 feet on the other side of it, which looks just like a sun, doesn't it?
it
And
does.
I'm here with my girl Paige, and I said, "Where do you see the sun?" And she points right there. I'm like, well, I see the sun over there. Now I'm looking from her point of view. That's where she sees the sun,
Uh-huh.
and I see the sun over here.
Right.
Okay, so we all see these projections in a position relative to our own, with I call within our personal atmospheric dome. What does that mean? Well, when you look through the air, especially across the plane, the air just becomes so thick at one point it becomes sky. That's what sky is. Sky is where the air becomes too opaque to see through.
Okay.
Okay. When you can't see, that's the sky. And so when the sun comes around, it's projected. We see it at the limit of our vision. That's where it manifests. Like if you ever go out on where the sun is out, we have a fog comes in. It looks like the sun is right there in the fog. You see it like it's right there. It's like really close because on
Uh,
those weather conditions, that's where it's manifesting for you. So on a clear day, it manifests at a certain distance. And then as it comes over you, it looks like it's getting higher. And I think, and I'm trying to do an experiment to show this, that when we see the sun on the horizon, it's closer. Its apparent position is closer. Think about this. And then as it comes over and it's rising, it's actually getting farther away because its apparent position, my dome of vision when I look straight up, let's just say it's 100 miles, just for a number. It could be 1 mile, 100 miles, 1,000 miles, 100 miles. But when I'm looking across, it's only 50 miles. So when the sun rises, it's 50 miles from me. At noon, it's 100 miles from me, even though it's coming towards me. Okay. And then that's kind of how we see it. Now that's just my opinion, right? Here's a quick little example. This looks really cool in person. This sun that you see right here, it's literally floating in midair inside of this thing. And all I'm doing is I'm moving a light source over it. I'm holding my iPhone, it's got the light on it, and it literally looks like a spherical sun floating in free space in here.
Yeah, it does. Wow, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And that you helped explain, because a lot of times, especially since I've moved here, there are times like when the moon rises, it is massive on the quote unquote horizon, just massive. And then when you get overhead, it's like all of a sudden it's this little tiny round dot again.
All right, but here there's several things that are happening here. One, you have the atmospheric magnification. Yes. Two, it's an optical illusion. Mm-hmm. It's not much bigger than it is when it's above you, but because it's close to the land, because of the way that you see it, it looks gigantic. You take a picture of it and it's like tiny little dot, right? It's like, wow, look at that. You take a picture and you're like, wait a minute, it's horrible. Okay. You can trick your brain into seeing through this illusion. Turn around, put your back to the moon when you see a giant moon on the horizon, bend over and look at the moon upside down through your legs, and it's tiny.
Wow. Okay, I'll have to try that.
It's crazy. And then it breaks this optical illusion, of what you actually see. This is I just wanted to show you this. So these are, let's imagine a person standing in each one of these. This is California. This is East Coast on the other side. And as the sun is moving over, this is where each person sees the sun. This is that little convergence point that we just watched in that dome. So it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon there. It's evening over here. Just bringing it back. Wherever the sun is, the actual sun shows you where it's noon, but everybody sees it in a different position relative to their personal atmospheric dome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And you were talking earlier, just a few minutes ago, and that's something else I wanted to touch on, because a lot of the NASA photos show the Earth and the moon, right? They're supposedly on the moon, and then they're supposedly seeing the Earth in the distance, and the Earth is this little teeny tiny ball, right? But yet, in the scheme of things, in their photographs, you show this little tiny moon and this big massive Earth like this. So if they're on the moon, why is not the Earth taking up the vast majority of the moon's atmosphere, or the sky? Supposedly it should, if you're looking at perspectives, but yet they have it like we're looking at the moon from the Earth. So I mean, they can't make it. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, according to their photos, they are trying to make the Earth the same size as the moon at that distance, when they're showing us in other photos, like I said, the moon is tiny, the Earth is huge, and it's doing this. So why not, when you're on this section and you see this big thing, why is it all of a sudden this far away? Yes, that makes no sense.
Yeah, this is supposedly the Earthrise from a Japanese trip to the moon. This is just a cartoon. Kenny and Cartman and Kyle from South Park are laughing at this, but people just want to believe it, right?
Yeah, because when they talk about the size of the moon and then compare it to the size of the Earth is massive compared to the moon, but yet here it makes it look like it's the same size.
Right. And then also think about this. Why don't we see any stars from space? Okay. This is what it should look like on the top there, but this is what they show us, right? Because they can't fake it. Because if you start showing stars, people are going to be like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. They're going to just prove it. So they show us black and they go, oh, the optics of our cameras that, we get $63 million a day for, don't work. This is.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I
ahead.
actually did write, this was years and years and years ago, before I even thought about flat Earth. I actually had that same question, and I went onto the NASA website and I wrote an astronaut, because they have these astronauts that answer questions. And I asked him that. I'm like, why are there no stars? Why can you not see stars on the moon?
Right.
And his response was, well, because they're so far apart from each other that from where we're looking, it's just nothing but deep space, and because they're too far apart.
That's
And I fell
I've
for
never
it.
even heard of that answer, but how
I fell
dumb is
for it.
that? You fell for it.
I did.
Because yeah, people want to trust authority. That's a if you give your trust away, if your teacher tells you something that doesn't make sense, you need to question it. But people go, "Oh, my teacher told me it's in the book." Well, the Rockefeller funded textbook that no private company could compete with because they sell them for a tenth of the cost that it costs to make them, so nobody could actually make a textbook
Right.
and sell it. Schools are purposely underfunded, so they can't go, you know what? I'm going to pay 100 times the cost for a real textbook, but they can't. So they buy the Rockefeller textbooks for $5 a piece that actually costs $30 a piece to make. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So, that's how and then they set the curriculum. School, anyone that's being homeschooled, here's the thing. In the future, not even in the future, now, right? I had my own business for a while. I will hire homeschooled children. I will hire people that go against the narrative, people that understand that we don't live on a spinning ball, people that are opening up their minds, right? These kids that are homeschooled now, they're the future of America, future of the world,
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
right?
Yes, please go on with this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is just before the moon landing. We've got the head of NASA, Arthur C. Clarke. We've got, Kubrick, all of these guys together in Hollywood.
Yeah, things that make you go,
Interesting. Yeah, things that make you go, BS.
I agree.
Right.
Oh, and there's an article I tried to send you, and it was talking about propulsion through space. And I know I'm jumping all over here,
Yep.
but this one really got me. And what it was explaining is they say that people have a misconception that it's getting pushed up by the force of the jet engine pushing off of the tarmac, but they say in reality that's not it. And in space, how it can keep moving is because it's pushing against the atoms of the gases that are being shot from the rocket. So it's not really pushing against the vacuum of space, but it's pushing against the atoms and the particles at the at the bottom of the rocket that's shooting out the gas. And I'm like, it just seems so ludicrous because it's like they cannot carry that much fuel to make a trip up and back.
There's absolutely, and it makes absolutely no sense. And there's been proofs in little small vacuum chambers where they try to do propulsion and it doesn't work. You can't have combustion in space, and there's nothing to push off. Propellers on boats push off water. Airplane propellers push off the air. What do these rockets? How do they navigate? How does Halley's Comet, just changing topics a little bit, go away for 76 years and come back and find us when we've been moving 4.4 billion miles a year? Okay.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, it's just mirroring your images. Everything's mirroring your images. The idea, so, I've been able to wake up a couple of like science teachers or, people that are in the teaching field when I talk about the distance of stars. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The closest star is 25 trillion miles away. You can't fathom that distance. Right. So when I shine a light, if I held a 100-watt flashlight an inch from the wall, all of that light is concentrated on that wall right there. Bam. Nice and bright. And I pull it back 10 feet. Now it's a big wide cone. So all of that light had to be spread out. Imagine that light like a stick of butter. So you got that stick of butter in 3 square inches, a 3-inch circle. And now you got to spread it out over a 10-foot circle. Well, it's getting thinner and thinner, right? Mm-hmm. That light is dissipating because it's being spread out over more and more. So the brightness of a star that we see at 25 trillion miles away would have to be so bright. It's unthinkable. Okay. It's actually even just at a couple light hours away. It's 633 light years away. No, that's Polaris. I'm sorry, Polaris. It's 4.5 light years away. It's the closest star. 4.5 light years. We can scientifically prove that our sun, at 3 light hours away, is magnitudes too far to see. Okay, and then the brightness issue. The inverse square law of light says every time you double the distance of something, it's a quarter of the brightness because it's spreading out. Okay. But people are short circuit. They're not able to process these numbers.
Yeah, and now again, I got into so much trouble in my science classes, because I would always, and I still think this way, even before I found like you and others like Eric Dubay who talk about this subject of flat Earth. I still thought, I'm like going, it makes no sense. How are we even able to see? We can't. I mean, if you're thinking logically, we can't even see a car 10 miles away or 5 miles away, or let alone put it 50 miles away, or even a big, massive balloon or whatever the largest thing we have. You put that thing 50, 100 miles away, we're not seeing it. But yet we're supposed to believe that the sun that is light years and trillions of miles away, we can see just fine, and it's warming us up. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So think about this. People's like, what about the space station? The space station is approximately the size of a football field, size of a 747. They're all pretty close in size. Think about a 747 at cruising altitude, right? What does it look like? It looks like a tiny little dot. You can tell it's an airplane. Mm-hmm. Can you actually see the engines that are on it? No, you can't, right? And they're bigger than most satellites, right? If I doubled the height of that 747, could you see it at all?
No.
Absolutely not. Scientifically provable that you can't see it. But we can see the ISS, which is 50 times higher. 50 times higher. Okay? Right? But 50 times higher. And we can see satellites that are 100, 200 times higher. Okay? Which are the size of the engine. Okay? Again, people just short circuit. Like, well, I was never taught to think like that in school. So I'm just going to have to believe that the light reflecting off of it just shines right to my eye and stays at the same intensity. All complete and utter nonsense. But
and I was talking to, well, not talking, going back and forth on a comment on someone else's video. They were doing a flat Earth video I was watching earlier, or actually over the weekend. And they were they were making fun of flat Earth. And so I just, I'm just made a basic comment like, okay. And something that, again, I noticed before I even found you is like, but they don't adjust for bridges. They don't adjust for roads. They adjust for nothing. And if we're on a curve, here, I had to go out and buy one. But if we're on a curve, that is good. Those roads, that it's gonna have to curve to follow.
Wait, how long ago did you get that globe?
Just about a month or two ago.
Is there a sticker on the bottom? On the bottom of the base, is there a sticker? What does it say? Read it. Read the sticker.
Globes are not meant for educational purpose, but only for decorative purposes.
Yes, there you go. So one of the things, getting back to the ISS. I've seen it. I had an app. It's like, oh, it's going to show up here. And there it is. And then it went across the sky. It took about 8 minutes to go across the sky. Well, 8 minutes from Connecticut. It's going 17,000 miles an hour. It should be in California already, but I can still see it. Are you kidding me? And people in California can't see it because it's not on their viewing trail. So that means it's much closer. So one of the things is there's an app that you can say, hey, from your location, you'll be able to see the ISS transit the sun or the moon. And when we heard about that, we're like, this is fake. But we did it, and we actually caught it. We saw it, right? So here's the ISS transiting the moon. Well, here's an airplane over there transiting. They look about the same size. So the only thing you can consider, well, we know the size of one of them. We know the size for sure of the plane.
Right.
So we know that both of these things have to be about the same altitude if they're the same size. Right. So it's all a trick. It's done with one whistleblower, unconfirmed, told us that it's 5 B-2 bombers, old B-2 bombers that were retrofitted where parts of the wings are made out of transparent material. It's got LED lights all over it, and that's what we're seeing at night. But then when it goes in front of the sun and the moon, it's just black because you don't ever see it approaching or exiting. You just see it transit, and it's just a parlor trick. There's five of them. Two of them are based in Alaska, two or three, and then the other ones are in other countries. And then they just schedule these things, and they fly and they tell you where you can see them, and they do all the math. And then it's a big elaborate trick to make you think you're insignificant and live on a ball.
Yeah.
This right here proves the ISS is not what they say it is. Done. That also unwinded to NASA's lying about everything. NASA's taking $63 million a day. NASA doesn't get our $63 million. They're just taking it because they control us with money. NASA doesn't need money.
Right.
Money. Anything they want to, any politic they want to do, they just get whatever they want. Type numbers into a computer, everything. They don't need money. Government doesn't need money. It's all a trick to control us.
Exactly. And, you know, one of my jobs, I worked for a government contracting facility, and I've heard you make this statement before, and you are 100% correct. Everything that is done is completely compartmentalized. No one company does everything on any of these. It is divided up, subcontracted out. You get a main contractor, you have subcontractors, and then a subcontractor that they them. Everything is parted out to everything. And nobody knows, well, except for probably, you know, my assumption would be someone like Lockheed may know, get the final. But
Well,
none of these other places see the final product. They just know they're told to build this.
right.
And
And there,
then,
there's so many people. My father, my grandfather, he worked on the Apollo mission. He made the hinge. He made the door handle. He made the seat. Yeah, these people make seats. People make satellites, and they think that they're going into space, but they're going up on balloons. Okay,
yeah,
they don't see it launched. Maybe someone made the satellite, think that it's floating in space, but this thing is going up on a balloon. NASA controls all the helium in the world. Okay, and they're the largest consumer of helium. Right?
yeah. Well, and a lot of these launches are classified. An average everyday Joe Blow, you're not allowed. There's so many times that I wanted to go to some of these launches because, again, I was part of, you know, I was in I believed all this stuff. Well, I never believed went to the moon, but I believed this stuff was still real. And I'm like, oh, I would love to go watch this launch. I would love to go here. I would love to go there. It's classified. We couldn't go. You had to have, you know, special clearance to be able to get there. And I'm like, well, that's weird. If it's also innocent, why can't we all just go and watch?
Yeah, 100%. If you watch the space shuttle launches, whenever there's two types of launches. One, they're actually launching something, okay, and they have the ability to launch good-sized rockets, but they're not filled with everything they say. They're mostly empty. They're helium. There's helium in them to make them lighter, and it's just a sideshow. It's just a stage show. Like the shuttle, this orange tank is a Macy's Day Parade balloon. Okay, it's literally filled with helium. This thing supposedly weighs 4 million pounds. The thrust from that, these people are so far away they can't even see the rocket. It's over a tree line, over 10 miles away, and they can
Wow.
see like this a tiny little tip of the nose, right? But they edit this to make it look like these people are right there, and
Right.
they're not. Okay, they're not right there. This is a beauty shot, and then all of this thrust should literally pulverize this fence and everything else around it, just
Yeah.
like a 300 mile an hour. Just saw what a 300 mile an hour a tornado could do. It turns everything into, just destroys everything. But no, that thing, superheated thrust. Now, this is not CGI. This is real because you can see the smoke trail. Okay, so they're actually launching something. It's just a big fireworks show, and there's other ones when when they go up, they're not real. These are the classified launches, okay? Where they do it at night, where they launch something small so someone could say they saw something, but they're launching projected holograms, okay? What am I looking? I'm looking for SpaceX. There we go. SpaceX. So this one I call the Tupac. Well, before I show you that, and I show this all the time, but it's worth for anyone that hasn't seen it. This thing is clearly still in the atmosphere. Okay,
Yes.
it's going multitude times faster than the SR-71. Okay, the
Mhm.
SR-71 is that spy plane that looks like a razor blade, but this thing somehow can go faster. These things can now go sideways. This thing is probably going 30 or 40 miles an hour, maybe 50. Okay, right? This is just
Yeah.
a balloon, right? Now these things are real. And they're going to fall into the ocean. They're going to recover them and have a whole big parade, bringing them back into the harbor. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, rah, rah. It's all a stage show. Okay. Now, that's the wrong one. There we go. This is what I call the two-pack rocket, right? Because it's a hologram. And we've caught them with holographic projectors on their lawn. NASA has these big lights, and we're like, what are these things? And we zoomed in, got a name, and it's from a holographic projection company. But
Oh,
there's no
wow.
smoke trail. There's no
No.
smoke trail. And they always show you this close shot, okay? That cameraman's great. How about pull back a little bit? Let us see what's really going on. I don't even know if this thing's moving, okay? This could be on a stick in a green screen studio, okay?
That's
But look what
true.
happened. Something
Oh,
happened.
no way.
Yeah,
It
something
glitched.
happened. It glitched. Okay. This was
Busted.
being shown. And now again, are they that dumb? Were they showing it live? Were they rubbing it in our faces? Or are they testing our intelligence? I don't know. I go back and forth all the time. I'm like, they're that stupid. Then
Well,
I'm
people
like,
don't question anything anymore. Even
right,
if they see it, they just ignore it.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And then when you look at have you seen the upright landings? Right?
Oh, okay. A friend of mine, and she's an engineer, an electrical engineer. We go back and forth. She believes this, and I'm like, no way. Is this? It's fake. It's CGI. It's fake.
This is a movie from the 1950s, pre-programming us of rockets landing on Ras. This one here, now I'm a ocean kite surfer, windsurfer. I know conditions. These are huge swells out here. It's blowing 5 to 10 foot swells. It's blowing like 30 knots out here, 20 to 30. Um, and this raft is heaving up and down. Okay,
Mhm.
this thing is going to land perfectly on that. You couldn't land a Harrier jump jet, which has 4 stabilizers. It's like a drone, right? You
Uh-huh.
couldn't. You would have a hell of a time landing it in these conditions on this raft. I know it's the funny thing is this is like one of the only ones from this far shot, which they don't show us anymore, where we see it actually land, but we don't. You see, all of a sudden it cuts. Every single time that thing's coming in, the camera on the drone ship, no humans on the ship, cuts out. And they always like, oh, it cut out. Oh, it landed. Right? It's unbelievable. It's unreal. Um,
And it's interesting that you mentioned that because I've, taken several cruises, and one especially. Oh no, I think the big one was like on my way to Mexico, and we hit like massive sea swells. I think they were saying, I forget. And I know that when they measure the waves, it's different. Like if they say 13-foot waves, it's actually larger. But anyway, but we hit some serious swells. And I've never been on the ocean where it's just calm and peaceful. There's always waves, always. And so yeah, I never thought about that. So if they have this platform out in the middle of an ocean that's doing this, how are they going to land that thing?
right. And then look at this thing. This is what are they showing us here?
That's a joke.
It's just a joke. I mean, that thing might have gone up and down. It's just a helium balloon with a weight on the bottom, so it kind of stays upright. And it went up, 50 feet and then back down. I don't even think that happened. Okay. And then,
Yeah, because
you look
what's
at
going to stabilize it?
all the rockets NASA launches, they all shoot up and curve out
Yeah.
and crash into the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, and that's another thing I often notice too is they all arc. And then someone had the nerve to say, well, that's because the Earth is a sphere and it's following the. I'm not, no, 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 no. They're
Right.
arcing way too soon.
Absolutely.
And while I had this globe, this is something I really wanted to show you. My daughter and I were talking about this, and she came up with such an excellent point. Now, okay, and we know that, right? The weirdo Neil deGrasse Tyson guy. Now you said in our last video that he states that around the equator it bulges 14 miles, right, or something like that. The water supposedly bulges. Now, just as an example, say that. Okay, here we go. We've got this ocean, right? And if we truly are in a globe, if you are a swimmer right here, you should be able to go in, dive down, straight down, and exit down here in the water. If we're on a globe, you just go straight through the water and you will come out the other side. That never happens. What happens anywhere you go and you go in the water and you go straight down? Where do you end up? On land. You always are hitting the bottom of the ocean. You're never going straight through. So how can we be on a globe if you can't swim from up here to down here? Well, say with a scuba tank or whatever, it's impossible. So, and you try to explain this to people going, okay, if we're on a globe, I should go here and I should come out here if I'm going straight down. And they're all like, what? That doesn't make sense. Well, exactly. This doesn't make sense, but they can't grasp that.
Submarines set their wings or fins or whatever they're called to follow the straight line, certain depth down. If that was the case and the water's curved, they should pop out of the water, but they don't, because
exactly.
And a submarine down on the bottom can use its sonar line of sight. If sonar hits a hill of mud or dirt, it's going to bounce back and say, look, there's a wall there. But they can see another submarine 100 miles away. There should be a mile high, over a mile high, 6,600 foot mountain in between the two submarines. But somehow its sonar can see it. And the only argument the Globers have is the sonar climbs up, hits the submarine, bounces back, and then comes back and shows them the hidden submarine on the other side. Sorry, you don't understand.
Yeah, sonar doesn't work that way. Yeah, it's like not at all. I like that one. Right. I saw you do a video last night. And I'm going to jump ahead of my notes because this was so cool. Where you were talking about Saturn and the rings of Saturn and the lights. Because I've seen Saturn through my own telescope, and because like I said, I love the sky and the stars. Please talk about this.
Yeah, so when we look up at the luminaries in the sky, the only thing we can truthfully say, not believe what Disney and NASA tells us. We can look and say, well, that's a light. Yeah, because I can see it. And how far is it? Don't know. How big is it? Don't know. What's it made out of? Don't know. Okay, we don't know. But they're clearly here within the Earth system. Now, I've seen Saturn. And when I look at Saturn, I see the ball and the rings, but they're both lit up literally like they're lights, because they are lights. Okay. Yeah. The rings are supposedly ice particles and rocks, right? And the planet how is it reflecting light? Why is it always full? Why do we always see a whole sphere, right? Now, it sure looks like that light is blocked out, it's blocked. When I see it, you do see the light kind of go behind it. Maybe it has something to do with the sun and it is lighting it up. I believe that the sun is sending electricity, for lack of a better word, and lighting up the moon. And the angle it hits the moon is the light the light that we see on the moon. These things are their own lights. They're all tied to the sun, not by gravity. They're all tied, to the electrical system. This is a giant electrical system. The sun and the moon are the anode and cathode of the battery system of the Earth battery.
Well, yeah, and if anybody, and I know not a lot of people do, but those who read the Bible and understand it, it says that the moon and the sun are their own light. They give off their light. It doesn't say that the moon is reflecting sunlight. And I know that can't be true, because even when the moon is out, you have the sun and the moon out at the same time during the day, and it's just right there, and you have this massive sun, but it only has partial lighting on the moon. Well, if it's right there, the whole thing should be lit up if it's being reflected.
Well, they say it's the angle of the sun. When there's a full moon, the sun is on the other side. That makes sense. But there's right now, at the time of this recording, the sunlight does not. They're both in the day sky. At least they were yesterday. It's gonna change soon. But the angle doesn't line up. Okay.
Right.
Where'd I go? There I am.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
So the sun should be up here somewhere. Yep. Should be way up here. I can't reach because I go off screen. But it's not lining up with where the sun is.
Yeah. So and I was getting ready to point at the screen for you. It's on the bottom where that sunlight is hitting the moon. if their theory was correct, that whole bottom portion should be lit up and the top darker. But instead, you have the top very crescent part of the moon is lit at an angle, and it never makes sense. So every time I see the sun and the moon, I go outside and I look at that, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out their theory, and it just never matches. I'm like, none of this makes sense, none of it at all. There was another thing.
This is kind of what we see when we
Yes.
see Saturn. It's just this light. It's amazing, amazing light. And what is it? Why are all the planets named after gods? Okay.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. These are energetic sources here within the Earth system.
Yeah, and I've looked through my telescope and I see exactly what you're showing. I see Saturn almost like that, but at a different angle, because I think where I'm at, it's a little bit different. But Mars, yeah, I don't see a quote unquote planet. That's what I see when I look at Mars.
Yeah, interesting.
And it's just beautiful.
Not a rocky ball floating in an infinite space vacuum. These are provable things. And then the brightness, Jupiter's in the sky now. It's so bright. How does that dusty, dirty ball reflect light back to Earth with a sun that's way smaller than our sun? Because from Jupiter, the sun is tiny. How does that tiny sun light up Jupiter and then reflect all the way back to Earth and look brighter than any star in the sky?
Yeah,
give me a break.
Sense.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, not at all. And there was a thing my daughter wanted me to ask you, and because what she heard, and this kind of goes along with what you're showing right now, is someone had.
I'm showing a cartoon for those of you wondering.
Love those cartoons. Was that she was either reading an article or watched a video where they were talking about the planets and how the sun is able to reflect off of their quote unquote atmosphere. And because they supposedly have a protective coating or a protective shell or something around them. And my daughter, I don't want to ruin her question because it was such a good question, but she's like, how, if the sun is such a massive ball of gas, how is it not vaporizing all of these things that are closer to it, like Mercury and Venus? Why, and anything else that could get closer? Wouldn't that protective coating be vaporized and then these planets themselves be vaporized?
None of it makes any sense whatsoever. We just had an alignment of all of the sun, moon, and stars, sun, moon, and planets the other day. They all lined up. How come their gravity doesn't nudge each other? Okay. These are impossibilities. It's called the three body problem, where we can't model more than two gravitational objects orbiting each other. You add a third body orbiting either one of the first two bodies and the model just falls apart. However, we have, 40, 50 objects in our solar system alone, and the system constantly repeats itself again and again. We know exactly where everything's going to be. Give me a break.
Yes, makes no sense at all. Yeah, and I remember it was a while ago when they were talking about when they started to make a big deal about alignments and everything's going to align and we don't know what's going to happen. Earthquakes might be going on. This was the news again, years before I even heard about, what the flat earth. And I'm like, well, this just doesn't make sense. And then when no catastrophic events occurred during the alignments, they've slowly kind of let that go by the wayside. So I'm like, well, they obviously can't. It cannot be what they're saying, because in reality, well, theoretically, if you have all these gravitational pulls and they're all so close in proximity and now they're all in the same line, you would think that it would make sense to have something happen, but nothing ever does. It's just another day in the neighborhood.
Have I shown you the optical illusion with the tables?
You have, but please do it again.
Yeah. So when people look and they say, well, I know what size that is, are these two tables the same width and length? And everybody says no, but actually they're exactly the same width and length. Right. And even though I'm exposing this to you, normally when you expose something, your mind can't unsee it. It's like you still can't reconcile that. And so unless you can touch it and measure it, you don't know, right? You don't know the size and shape of it.
See, I don't know how many times, and I actually saw a video of a museum where they have this same thing, and you get to go in and measure things. And the guy was videotaping it, and they had that same exact thing in the museum. And I don't know how many times I've seen this. I can't, my brain, like you said, it can't reconcile that. It still looks different, completely different.
Right. And
Amazing.
and so we're in this impossible more than three body solar system where every year the stars reset, every 18 years the eclipses reset. We know where all the planets are going to be all of the time, right? We know all of this stuff. How do we know this unless it's in a perfectly ordered system? This is a monument that on November 11th at 11:11 a.m., the sun lines up with all of these holes and lights up this little memorial. It's for a veterans memorial, but the sun shines right through these holes and is magnified right on the spot every year at 11:11 at 11:11 on 11:11 at 11:11. Okay,
Well, that's
how
weird.
is that possible in a heliocentric beehive? Right? Wouldn't things, when we have an alignment, wouldn't the Earth just be tilted just a little bit, pulled this way, pulled that way? But everything works perfectly according to our timeline for millions and millions and millions and millions of years, when in fact, it wouldn't work perfectly for 5 minutes with all of
Right.
these gravitational forces. How does the sun hold on to all of these distant planets, but all of the planets hold on to their moons, but the sun ignores the moons? Okay. When
Yeah,
our
that
moon comes around towards the sun, how come it doesn't get yanked off? How come the sun doesn't grab it? How come it
it
doesn't pull
should.
it? How come it doesn't slow it down when it's going away from the sun? These are things that people refuse to think about. Okay? Because they haven't been taught to think. They've been taught to memorize and regurgitate because a guy in a bow tie and a white lab coat told you. Okay? Right? This is, we, people, you say, what's the radius of the Earth? Well, I don't know, it's 4,000, it's 3,958, or just under 4,000 miles. How do you figure it out? Well, somebody figured it out. Well, how'd they figure it out? Well, smarter people figured it out. Nobody knows. It's all made up nonsense. And if you don't have the radius of the Earth, you don't have anything else. You don't have the distance sizes of planets. Nothing works. And the
Right.
radius of the Earth is provably not what they tell us. Because a 6 foot tall person standing at the edge of calm water should see a physical horizon at 3 miles, but we can zoom in on things 10, 15, 20 miles away. We can see things so far away with today's consumer optics that we would require a radius of over 270,000 miles versus the 4,000 that they tell us it is.
Wow. And I just thought of something too. And because they tell us that especially like over water, as an example, that you only see so far, and then that's the horizon, and it dips off, and blah 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 blah. But I think, what is it, like 3 miles that if you're standing on a beach to the quote unquote horizon, like three
Six,
miles.
six foot.
But
It's
yet,
a 6 foot drop of 3 miles. So a 6 foot tall
okay,
person standing at the edge of calm water should only be able to see 3 miles.
yes. And then what people don't stop to think is that, okay, that's 3 miles that way. And then they're all believing, okay, yes, that's the horizon dipping off there. But if you're going side to side, was that 10 miles at least? If you're seeing this way to this way, and it's completely flat, but yet you're supposed to believe it goes this way. Why is everything flat, but yet they want us to believe it's round? I don't get it. Everywhere you look, it's flat.
Right. They want to tell you, well, the Earth is too big for you to actually see that, right? And but they want you to believe that boats go over the horizon. Okay.
Yeah, and like they're calling that a horizon there. So say 3 miles from where they're to that boat, but if you're going side to side where it's completely flat and straight out, it's over 10 miles and there's no curve in
And
either
this
direction.
is where a lot of people get tied up. They think they see a curve. So if somebody's standing here, that's they see the same distance in all directions. So here, so this person's looking out and he sees X distance here. Well, the atmosphere is the same. He's seeing X distance in all directions. Okay, he's seeing the same distance in all directions. You with me?
Okay, yes.
Let me make that a little better. So he's seeing the same distance in all directions. But if you draw a straight line over that, this is what you see. This straight line is going through space, and then they go, there's the curve of the Earth. You're seeing the curve of the Earth. right? But you're not. This is the limit of your vision to your horizon. You're drawing a line through the air. The higher up you go, the farther you can see. So that
Mhm.
apparent horizon is going to move, but that horizon is a oops, that horizon is a circle.
Mhm.
The horizon is a circle because our vision of you is a circle. It's like putting your head in the middle of a hula hoop, and at eye level, that edge of the hula hoop is the limit of your vision. You can draw a tangent line to that and claim that hula hoop's a sphere, but we know that that vision that you're seeing is a flat circle.
Yeah, and one more thing, because I know we're getting short on time, and I definitely want you to share your app for sure. Because was one other thing, and how they're always saying like the spin, right? So if the Earth is spinning super fast, right, and they're saying that it's way faster at the equator than up here, and it's slowing here, this is a solid mass. You cannot have a spin of this mass faster here, but slower at the top of the bottom. They would have to be on some type of gear. They would have to not be connected. And again, this just boggles my mind that people fall for this. Either the entire globe is spinning at the same speed, or it doesn't exist at
So
all.
if we lived on a globe, which is
Right,
impossible, at the
right.
equator you're moving 1,000 miles an hour, but in Alaska you're moving 300 miles an hour. And
Doesn't work that way.
it does. It does if we lived on a ball. The problem is if you took off from the North Pole or Alaska and you flew to Ecuador, how are you going to land on a runway that's moving sideways at 1,000 miles an hour when you only have that initial 300 miles an hour of sideways initial inertia, right? If you want to add the speed of the airplane to it, which is stupid, that brings you up to 800 miles an hour. So now you got a runway that's moving 200 miles an hour sideways. Okay, nonsense. It's utter nonsense. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So, again, why am I talking about flat Earth now with all the craziness going on in the world? And the answer is because that's why all the craziness is going on in the world. People are lost. People are lost in space. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they are. Okay, they have no idea the power that we truly have. You know, why lie about the shape of the earth? Who cares about the shape of the earth? It's the lie that matters, right? They don't want us to know that our thoughts create our reality. Our thoughts create our reality. This is a magical world we live in, and they don't want us to know that. They want to, we are free, and nobody has to give us rights because we have God given inalienable rights.
Right.
Okay. So to say, well, you just do this, we'll let you go shopping. No, I can go shopping. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not listening to any of this. And anyone that thinks that someone has power over them, that's in your imagination.
Right.
In
The
your
only power they
imagination.
have is what you give them.
Right. So
So yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So on these last few minutes, oh, we're actually probably over. Can you please just show everybody your app? I have this app. I love this app, and I watch the little short clips almost every day. So let everybody know what they're missing.
real quick, it's the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. And every day there's a new featured video right here and different topics each day. And it's like, if you don't know what to look for, watch that video. If you want to answer some specific questions, hit the question mark and up come playlist of videos that YouTube is hiding from you. Okay. Um, you Google flat Earth, you might as well just remain a glober for the rest of your life because they're going to feed you nonsense. Google any term, any phrase with the word flat Earth in it, you get the same results, all propaganda. You get Bill Nye, the lying guy with the bow tie. You get Simon Dan. You get Professor Dave. These are actors put out there with scripted videos that try to make you feel stupid for even questioning the narrative. Okay. Flat Earth is the easiest thing to see, but you just have to put down your ego and your lifelong ball training and let it go. Just let it go and then use your common sense and don't give it up for nonsense. That's what they want you to do. Um, Tons of resources in here, tons of stuff. Um, you know, uh, the mud floods button alone will blow your mind. And there's books if you want books are amazing. Whoops, we go there. Um, Also, I've got flat Earth related things. If you're looking to buy something flat Earth related, amazing stuff on here. One of my favorites right now is Truth Smacks. It's an awesome nut mix, but it
Oh,
has
cool.
truth quotes all over it. So I'm giving it to my sleeping friends for Christmas. Right? It
Nice.
has flat Earth. There's flat Earth version. There's truth versions. Amazing, amazing fun stuff. Um, get out of that, and all sorts of stuff. T-shirts, if you want to flat smack somebody with a T-shirt, um, all sorts of stuff. So one of my favorites is the the bold hoodies, right? And the one that says flat earther, it's gigantic. It goes out, people can't help but start the conversation. Okay.
Nice.
Um, languages, playlists in different languages. Most people listening are speaking English, but all sorts of stuff in here. And just go read the reviews if you're unsure. The app is $3, right? Oh, last thing is the app's $3, but there's a friend finder which we just added, and it shows you where the other flat earthers are around you. Here are the flat earthers that are around me, and I could tap on any one of those blue dots and send that person a message. Okay,
Mhm.
I can do a group message to. I got everybody within 50 kilometers, and there's 250 people within 50 kilometers of me. I could do an instant meetup. Hey, tomorrow 6 p.m. the so and so bar and grill. Come one, come all. You now just have a new group of people to associate with. And the thing I was saying before about homeschooled kids that are people that are awake, every single blue dot there, you have more in common with them than you do with anybody that any other site is going to match you up with. That you'll randomly meet at a party. Every single one of those people knows the Earth is not a globe. They know about the insanity that's going on in the world. So it's the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. You can just scan this QR code. You can just go to flatearthdave.com and link it there. Just make sure, because Android has a fake one out there under the same name, some of the same graphics. The app is is horrible. So don't send me an email telling me my app sucks, because everybody loves my app.
Well, I have your app, and I do. I like it a lot. And also, I went ahead and I did the subscription. I know people don't have to, but I have no problem supporting.
So here's the thing: it costs money. The server and sending messages
Right.
costs money. But I made it so if you don't subscribe, you can still get group messages. Like if I send out a message and half the people, I send it to 250 people and half the people aren't subscribed, that's okay. They still get the message. They still get the information, and I include my email address in there, and they can email me. So now they've just got it for free. But if you want to send messages, it's $11 for a year. That's like buying me a margarita and not tipping the bartender very well. And then you have it for a year. Okay.
Right. And I have no problem with that at all. I've heard some people make some really snide comments, but I'm like, really? I mean, I pay more than that for doing other things, just tipping a waiter. So
there's no other subscription. There's no other subscription. There's nothing. There's very few things that cost less than $11 a year.
Yeah.
Okay?
And it's been money well spent. I love the app and I highly recommend it. So scan that barcode. I'm telling you, it's a great app. Yeah. And unfortunately, we're out of time. I could just talk to Dave all day, every day. I mean, he's just so knowledgeable on the subject. So again, I want to say thank you, Malachi. I'm sure I don't know how far you made it, but if you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed Flat Earth Dave. And thank you for everybody for watching. And thank you so much, Dave, for coming back and sharing more. And hopefully 6 months down the line, I can get you. My questions, they just never end. And you always come up with more and more interesting things. But I really hope you come back.
This line of thinking, once you go down this road, there's always more questions. There's never, like, I don't sleep a lot because there's so much to learn. You will never be bored again, ever. There's no chance for me being bored for 1 single minute, whether I'm stuck in traffic, whether I'm in a line somewhere, because I've always got something to listen to, something to watch, something to learn, or something to think about. It's just absolutely amazing. And I'm really living my life the fullest because I'm really seeing the world for what it is, and it's an amazing place.
It really is. Perfect. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys all have a great day.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks.